Welcome to our podcast where we look for opportunities in our lives to see a beautiful view. I'm Candy.
And I'm Paul. Thank you for joining us for our very first podcast episode.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the beautiful view. So I think to start out, I think to introduce ourselves, we'll take a little walk down memory lane to try to tell a little bit about ourselves. You might have noticed that I have one accent and Paul here has a little slightly different accent.
Slightly.
So, Paul is originally from England and I'm originally from Texas. And?
Well, we met online back in the dark ages of the internet.
Before it was trendy.
Yeah, I can remember many times trying to connect to the internet to start with, and it was just driving
on dial-up.
Oh, my word. And you'd sit there and wait and wait and wait. And finally, we would get through to our chat room. Mm-hmm. And then we'd be in the middle of some like really fun or deep conversation, and suddenly we're kicked offline.
Yeah.
And that would happen oftentimes because we'd be online for a long time.
That was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But we talked online for probably, over a year before we actually met in person.
Yeah, so that was kind of the good thing, right? Because it was a format, a medium where we had to communicate well with each other. Mm-hmm. And I liked it because, and I would shy away from phone conversations.
I liked your cute accent though.
No, but I would shy away from that because we would be on, which did we do first, MSN chat or ICQ?
MSN was first.
So we did the MSN chat thing. And for those of you young'uns out there, it was like just a very simple, almost like online text message thing. But it gave me a chance to think, to read what you'd said, make sure I understood you correctly, and maybe backtrack a little bit and just sort of kind of get the gist of what you were saying, and then think of a really smart answer. So it made me appear to be a lot.
And would you like to tell our audience what the first picture was that you sent me of yourself?
Well, at first I didn't send you anything because I was just like, no, I don't want to ruin this. So, after you insisted, there were a string of monkey pictures that I sent your way, and it was a good tactic.
Yeah, because at least I found then that you did have a sense of humor, so that was good.
Yeah, and I didn't take myself too seriously. Yeah. So, but then I think after a while it kind of got old, and you were just like, now stop sending me pictures of orangutans. I want to see what you actually look like.
Well, I think it came down to it when you were actually going to fly over here. And I'm like, you're going to have to send me a picture of yourself so I know who to look for at the airport. This is like pretty like serious now. So Anyway, so you came over here and you were here for like 3 weeks. So when you told me you were coming for 3 weeks, I was like, oh, crap. This is either going to be really good or really awful.
And I was completely confident it was going to be great.
Oh, you were, yeah.
I was confident. But the thing was, I had never flown overseas before.
Right.
At that point, I was, 28 years old. Mm-hmm. Never been in a plane. Never gotten outside of like a 300-mile radius of where I lived in England. And so, if I was going to go overseas and come to the United States, I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time to take it all in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because in my mind, at the very least, this was going to be a good opportunity to see another country, to see the land of the A-Team and the Dukes of Hazzard and Dukes of Hazzard it was, and then kind of get the full flavor of the different culture. All that kind of stuff. And I knew that, at the very least, we had a good friendship that meant that we were going to have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, 3 weeks it was.
Yeah. So, and we did have a really good time. And by the end of that 3 weeks, we were both pretty much convinced that we were supposed to be lifelong partners, which is kind of bizarre.
You're not.
And it happened pretty quick.
So that's not the truth. So, and she said it. So
it's not the truth?
Well, I mean, for me it was, but you were still like, I guess so.
Well, I knew I wasn't ready to move to England, but
no.
I was like, if this guy will move here, then
maybe
we might be able to make this work. So anyway, you went back to England. I actually flew over there twice.
You did.
And we, somewhere in the middle of all of that, realized that really was what we wanted to do. So
yeah,
we got engaged on one of my trips over there.
Yes.
And that was kind of right after September 11th happened. So Paul was actually supposed to come over to the States just before that happened, or just after that happened, and asked my dad for my hand in marriage. But since he couldn't travel and all of that, it ended up I came later, and he had to ask him over the phone, which was kind of sad, but
and it
all worked out.
And it was difficult too, because your dad at that point had worked in the oil field for a really long time, and so he'd lost a lot of his hearing. And at that time, I was very
British.
Very British. And so he did his best. He just came across really friendly. And and he was, and he said, well, son, I guess that would just be a good idea. I think you should do that.
That's a pretty good impression.
I think I pulled something. So anyway.
So you came to the States.
Yep.
We got married.
Yep.
We had to go through a huge process of immigration and all of that kind of good fun stuff. But after we got married, then you had to become a lawful permanent resident so that you could actually get your quote unquote green card so that you could get a job.
Yeah.
So we did that. And the first job that you got hired onto was doing the media ministry at my home church.
Yes.
So you did that for a period of time.
Yes.
And then through a contact that we had, you got offered a job at another church in a neighbor town.
Right.
Which was a slightly bigger church and a few more responsibilities.
Added responsibilities. I learned a lot about TV ministry, which was interesting. And then from there, we moved on to an even larger church at another neighboring town. So we're kind of hop skipping and jumping our way across West Texas, and there got involved in some really big stuff.
Very technical, heavy,
challenging, creative. Worked with a lot of very talented people. Learned a lot of stuff along the way.
Yeah, but then at some point, you kind of burned out, didn't you? So
yeah, at first it was me that kind of burned out first, because and we can talk about this at a different time.
That's another episode.
Basically what happened was I was spending way too much time on the job.
Right. Yeah.
We weren't seeing each other.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to be as involved in the family as either one of us would like.
Right. So then, though, you left, quote unquote, church ministry, but your ministry didn't end there.
No, that was the great thing. And that's we've been able to look back on our lives and with the gift of hindsight, be able to see exactly why things happened the way they happened. And so from there, I basically just took all of the skills that I had learned in working in church world for 12 years in technical ministry, and increasingly more complicated, difficult, challenging technical ministry, to the secular world. Yeah. Where it was like, okay, you were still working at the church.
I was the children's ministry assistant there, and I carried on working there for a good while until our business got so busy that you needed my help. So it took both of us then at that point to kind of keep things going. So, and that's where Sinar Media really kind of took on a life of its own, wasn't it? So,
and I had already been taking on a little job here and there on the side of my full-time job, which now when I look back on it, I'm like, how did I ever have time for that? But I did. And so some of those contacts that I had built up during my full-time career then became my only contacts and my only source of work, which was it was a great thing that worked out that way. So that gave us the freedom to be able to start working, both of us, for the family business.
Yeah. And then you remember the infamous, or maybe famous, I don't know, family meeting that you called one night.
When I thought I had unique information that no one else had thought about, which is,
But as it turns out, you and I had been researching the exact same thing, and you want to tell what that was?
Yeah, so at that point, I had started following a YouTube channel. I had looked at some other things as well about families that were choosing to live on the road in an RV.
Yeah.
And so I sat the family down and said, look, I've been researching this, and I think it would be a really cool idea if we just sold the house. I can do my work from anywhere. Everything's online these days. So I can do that stuff from anywhere.
Right.
Why don't we just buy an RV, sell the house, buy an RV, and travel around the country?
Yeah. And what did I say to that? I said, come here, look at the computer. I have this already pulled up. I've been researching it too.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, one instance in our lives where there's nothing else, there's no denying it, that there was some other influence over us that was guiding us.
Absolutely.
That we found out that even though we were trying to sort of keep these things under wraps from each other, that we were both on the same page.
Yeah, I think that was a big step for us in kind of our faith journey, wasn't it? Like just kind of acknowledging that God had been working on both of us at the same time for the exact same purpose. So it was obvious to us that that was indeed what we were supposed to do. Was it scary? Yes.
It was. Well, and I think that there was a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah. But we were excited too. The kids were excited, but it meant a lot of changes for us. So it meant homeschooling the kids. We hadn't done that before. The kids were in public school at that time. It meant working remotely completely. So that kind of limited some of the work that you were doing.
Yep.
But it also was so exciting to just kind of think about all of the possibilities and how visiting different places would affect our kids' education and our education. We got rid of so much stuff out of our house because we went from a 2,600 square foot house to a 400 square foot RV. So the community that we found on the road was amazing. And we have
friends that, still today.
Yeah.
Friends that we made on the road, and we gradually got more and more adventurous.
We did.
We were traveling further and further afield. It took me a while to get used to the idea of actually being able to go wherever we wanted to.
Right. And I was like, let's go here, let's go there.
Yes.
But we have hit in the RV, we have to count a state. We have to stay the night in the RV and do something fun.
Yep.
So I think we have 38 states that we have stayed in the RV and done something fun in. Yep. So we hit a good part of the country on our 6.5 years of full-time travel.
6.5 years.
So,
and then was it the fourth year of our traveling that we?
I think so.
So in our fourth year of our travels, or third year of our travels, we were looking to go to Wisconsin, and you were looking at somewhere to stop in between where we were at,
right,
and Wisconsin,
right.
And it was looking like we were going to end up with like a 5 or 6 hour travel day, and we don't usually like to do that.
Right. So I was just looking online, and we love to stay at state parks. So I came across this beautiful view overlook from the Bellevue State Park in Iowa, and it overlooks the Mississippi River. And I was like, oh, we have to stay there. We have to stay there. That's so pretty. It's a little cute little town. I want to kind of explore. So we did that. We booked 2 weeks at the Bellevue State Park. And the first night that we were there camping, we were walking up from our campsite up to the overlook to see that beautiful view.
Yep.
And I tripped on a little crack and fell and broke my foot the very first night we were there. So
I didn't realize how serious it was at the time, but I helped you back to get back to the RV.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we went to an urgent care the next day, and we found out that you had indeed broken your foot. Mm-hmm. And so we got you set up in the RV, and that led to a longer stay, which we could only stay for a short time at the state park.
Yeah, we had 2 weeks at the state park, but there was another campground down the road, and we were able to move up there for the next month. So we ended up spending a total of 6 weeks or so in Bellevue that first time, and just absolutely fell in love with this little town. So that was in 2018. We came back the next summer and did a full season here in 2019. Mm-hmm. We popped back through in 2020, even though things were weird. We came back in 2021 and had another seasonal site.
Yeah.
And then at the end of our stay that summer, there was a little house that came on the market, 3 days before we were supposed to leave?
Yes. And you told me, you said, and you were kind of like, should I tell him? And then you're like, there's this house just come up and it looks like it's in our price range.
There were no pictures posted on it yet. I saw it when it popped up, within 30 minutes of it going on live.
So I'm like, let's go look at it. So we came and looked at it, and it was just everything that we needed.
Yeah.
And so we quickly found out that we could indeed go ahead and buy this house. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. And we have just to kind of put you in the picture here, we just skipped through 18 years of history. And so
very condensed version.
Audience, give us some credit here. We managed to skip through a whole bunch of time. Now, obviously, there's a lot of details in there. So that leads to my next question, which is, why are we doing this podcast?
That's a very good question. So usually people love to hear our story for some reason. They think it's really fascinating. We've been asked several times to speak at different events around this area. They've covered us in the newspaper articles. We've appeared in a couple of different newspapers around. And people just love our story. And one of the things that they always say to me is, you should write a book. So,
in your spare time, right?
Yeah, there's a lot involved in writing a book. And quite honestly, I've picked it up and attempted it a couple of times, and it always ends up in the trash can. So, it's just really hard to know where to start, because our story and our testimony is so huge. It's so broad. You start into it, and then it rabbit trails to something else, and then it rabbit trails to something else. So I think the podcast,
the format
kind of lends itself to telling snippets of your story, and then another episode you can expand on that and just dedicate that episode to more detail.
And our grammar doesn't have to be perfect.
Our grammar doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to go through. Paul's thankful for that.
we just talk.
Yeah.
Now, although we didn't get to writing a book, you were writing our blog.
I was, yeah.
As we were on the road, which is something that you can go and read right now. So if you're interested in our
travel experiences, yes, and our story along the way, our journey on the road.
That 6.5 years is pretty much, we've covered it in our blog post. So go to ourmovinghouse.com. Mm-hmm. And you will find our blog there, and you can read some of the stories.
Yeah. And we may actually, in this podcast, we may revisit some of those blogs and expand on them a little bit more. Yeah. If it's, because there's a lot of it that was shared on there that's part of our story. Okay, so let me ask you this. So we kind of went back. We kind of came up with this idea like this week, right? Like for a podcast. Like
Yes.
it's like, okay, so what would we call our podcast?
Yeah, so we're in Bellevue, Iowa. And although this is not a podcast specifically about Bellevue, Iowa, it's broader than that. It definitely gave us the idea for the name.
Right.
Because Bellevue means...
Beautiful view.
So hence
And
the
we
name of
do
the
have a
podcast.
beautiful view of the mighty Mississippi.
it's like we're kind of spoiled when we go out for our morning walks with the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to see the town we live in and meet the people that live here. This is a smallish town of like
3,000 people or so.
3,000 people or so,
Mm-hmm.
but busy too. Like we're right on the main highway, following.
It's part of the Great River Road.
Yep, following the Mississippi River. There's a lot of tourist traffic that comes through in the summer.
Yep.
And it's just a beautiful place for people to be and spend some time here.
But that's not the only reason that we thought of Beautiful View. We also, on our RV adventures, like how many amazing campsites have we had where we had
Wow.
beautiful views like right outside our door. So that's another thing. Like I hope to be able to talk about and share some of those things with our listeners too. But we also, we recognize, like we said earlier, that there's beauty in being able to share your story and your testimony with people.
There really is. And we see it in this community. We see it throughout the country, wherever we've traveled, with the beautiful people that we've gotten to meet and spend time with.
Yes.
And I'm excited about being able to maybe even talk to some of those people on this podcast.
That would be amazing.
And so, whether this reaches like 10 people or 20,
Still to be determined.
still to be determined, we will certainly want to give an opportunity for those stories to be heard by others.
Right.
So what are some of the things that we're going to cover in future episodes of this podcast?
Yeah, I think definitely family, friendships.
We'll tell you a little more about our travels on the road and some of the places we've been and people we've met.
And obviously our faith works its way into pretty much every story that we tell.
Every avenue of our lives has been impacted by faith.
Yeah.
And there have been lots of times where we've had to have faith and hope that things would work out.
Yep.
It's a choice in life. It's a choice over how we choose to be in those situations. What are we going to choose? Are we going to choose to look on the positive side? Or are we going to pull ourselves down by diving into the negative side?
Right.
And that happens all too often today.
It
is that because let's face it, looking at the negative is easy.
Oh, it is easy. You have to look a little harder for the beauty, but there's beauty everywhere. At this point, we are planning on doing, 4 pilot episodes?
Yes, that's kind of where we were trying to be realistic about this. And so we want to be able to bring you 4 episodes, which will be kind of dipping our toe in the water to see if there is indeed an audience out there that would want to listen to us. Yeah.
We'll see. Yet to be determined.
Yet to be determined. So we are going to see if there, if there is interest in us doing some more. But we want to give you 4 episodes at least. So thank you for joining us for this first episode.
Yes. And have a great day, and look for opportunities today to see a beautiful view.
They're out there.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.